Michael Gabriel Gittins, also known as Black Boy and Soldier of Montreat St. Patrick, passed away on Tuesday, 19th July, at the age of 71. Left to mourn are his father, Charles Richardson, in the UK, children Andia and Anisha David, Roy and Walter James, all in Grenada, Shani and Lyndon Alexander in the USA, 3 sisters, Elsa Thomas and Sherma Richardson and Monica Maureen, grandchildren, Cami, Candice, Jolana, Shade, Kimon David, Tahim and Sophia Richardson, Girlie Alexander in the USA, one great-grandson, Kimoni David, Aunt Celia Noel, nephew, ASP Sherwin Thomas, niece, Cassie Caliste, brother-in-law of Trevor Thomas. Other relatives and friends including Rhea John, Sharon Eli, Deslin, Vilma Barrow, Lucille and Miss Moana and family, Gabby and the Boys by the Shop, Stedman and the Boys by the Shop, R.A., Joe, Crafton in the USA and Ricky Barry, the Gittins, Alexander, Richardson, and Wickham families, Pastor Gittins and members of the Snail Hall Seventh-day Adventist Church, friends and family of the surrounding areas, Montrich, Sotez, Snail Hall, Rose Hill, Duquesne, and Montrose. The funeral of the late Michael Gabriel Gittins will take place on Thursday, 11th August at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Snail Hall Seventh-day Adventist Church, St. Patrick, and the interment at the Marley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Margaret Felix of Upper Capitol St. Andrew, who resided at Montrush and Woodland St. George, died on July 18, 2022, at the age of 85. She was the mother of Christopher Felix, sister of Francis Felix Ashton and Hilary Charles, aunt of Claudette Leslie Mills in Canada, Nash, Laurie and Grantley Griffith, Troy, Michael and Katina Felix, grandaunt of Lauren, Lorraine, Lorne, Lornell, Nashon and Joshua Griffith, Antonique, Terrell, Khalil and Tori Felix, sister-in-law of Godwin Griffith and Ralston Ashton, aunt-in-law of Brenda and Jenny Griffith, close relatives and friends including Monica Worm and family of the Bocas, Wilfred Peterkin and family of Laborie, Margaret Felix Swap of Harford Village, Jasmine, Tricia and Darren Miller, Bernadine Felix, Rosa Felix, Celia Felix Mitchell, Wilbur Felix, Ashford and Ashley Felix, the Andrew family, the Felix and Charles families of Upper Capitol, Birchgrove, St. Andrew. The funeral service for the late Margaret Felix of Upper Capitol, St. Andrew, who resided at Montrush and Woodland, St. George, will take place on Thursday, August 11th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, followed by interment at the St. George's Center Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Kathienne Alicia Joseph of Brazan, St. George, who resided in the USA, passed away on Tuesday, 2nd August 2022 in the USA at the age of 40. She was the wife of Donald Joseph in the USA, mother of Nathaniel Joseph in the USA, stepmother of Joycelyn Joseph in the USA, daughter of Lona Bull in the USA and Claude Bullen in Grenada, sister of Rudolph Superville, Wendell Joseph, Jason Boca, Christopher Dixon and Sabrina Lewis and Pauline Taylor, aunt of 10, niece of many including Claudette Bullen Gordon, Amory Joseph, Desiree Joseph, Kathleen Bullen Selman, Martin Joseph and Henry Bullen. Many other relatives and friends including Jeanette Andrew, Michelle Hercules, Terry Crane Pittman, Crystal Selman in the USA, Mary Entwine, Lisa and Ashley Joseph, Thomas Lacroix, Natalie Williams, Gurley Lewis, the management and staff of NYU Langoon Hospital, the Bullen family of Cherry Hill, the Joseph families of Brazan, and many other relatives and friends of Brazan and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Kathienne Alicia Joseph of Brazan, St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Friday, August 12th in the USA. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes.
Monica Noel Alexander of Mount Rodney, St. Patrick, passed away on Saturday, 16th July, at the age of 82. She was the wife of Cyril George, mother of Ricky, Adrian, and Gary Alexander, and Ian Noel, grandmother of Tiffany, Ian, John, Makeda, Tunisa, Naomi, Samori, Cassandra, Shadi, Aisha, Ayana, Akil, Maddie, Ajani, Wayne, Aind, and Kemba, great-grandmother of Isaiah, Sarai, Joshua, Kalia, and Aind Jr., sister of Monica Noel and Bernice Noel in Trinidad, Barbara Noel in the UK, Cleophas and Karen Noel, Doslin Alexander in the USA, Samuel Alexander in St. Martin, Dr. Donald Noel, Dale Noel, Cleo Hyacinth, Lucy Peters, Cyril Peters, and Sherma Frederick in Grenada, mother-in-law of Dale and Pat, sister-in-law of many including Dr. Annette Noel, several nieces and nephews including Lennox, Rawl, Merle, Earl, Jr., Mervyn, and Pixie Fingal in Trinidad, many relatives and friends including Marilyn, Moyani, and Karen Hosford, Nigel John, the Rush and Christopher families, Scott family, Hazel and Gail Holder, Dr. Julie Dubois, Dorian Cato, Kenny Lalsing and the staff of Calico, Satez, friends and neighbors of Montrodney, St. Patrick. The funeral of the late Monica Noel Alexander of Montrodney, St. Patrick will be held on Monday, 15th August at 1 p.m. The funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick's Catholic Church, Satez, and the interment at the Marley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lockwar Brothers Funeral Home.
Antonia Claudette Simon of Birch Grove, St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, 9th July 2022, at the age of 74. She was the mother of Natalie Simon, grandmother of Daniela, Michelle, Jada, Nihwana, Nikwan, Nikela, and Nikel, sister of Marina Aberdeen in the USA, Trudy Ermentrude Simon in the UK, and Monita Simon in the USA, aunt of many including Adrian, Sharon, Alistair, Sheridan, Sherman, Merrill, Michael, Marlon, Roland, Jacqueline, Debbie, Maria, Lyndon, Kenroy, June, Leonard, Mamie, Jackie, Lindsay, Wendy, Jeanette, Alpha, Valen and Martin, grand-aunt of many, sister-in-law of Beatrice Simon, caregivers Janelle Grant Charles and Marcia Aberdeen, many other relatives and friends including the Venture, Simon, Graves, Belmar, Foray, Alexander, McSween, Forrester, Charles, Ned, Henry and Sez families, the Birch Grove Senior Choir, the prayer group, and friends and neighbors of Birch Grove and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Antonia Claudette Simon of Birch Grove, St. Andrew, will take place on Thursday, August 18th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Matthew's R.C. Church, Birch Grove, St. Andrew, and interment will be at the St. Rose Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwar Brothers Funeral Homes. Maria Sylvester, also known as Sheila Sylvester, and Tanti Sheila, of St. Paul, St. George, who resided in the USA, passed away on Saturday, July 2nd, 2022 in the USA, at the age of 86. She was the mother of Sharon, John and Jude Sylvester, Carolyn Ortega, June, Lydia and Sherilyn Sylvester in the USA, and Jacqueline Cecilyn Simon, grandmother of 24, including Ricardo, Jeremy and Judy Sylvester, Nakisha Hackett, Amaliri, Valin Sylvester, Kashi Joseph, Kaddish, Leon and Alana Sylvester, Oscar and Oswaldo Ortega, grandmother of many, great-grandmother of many, sister of Veronica Clement in Trinidad, mother-in-law of Marlene Jagassar Sylvester, Alistair Warwood and Oscar Ortega. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Richard Smith, Venita Sylvester, Marcia John, Claudette Sylvester, Margaret Miller, Paula Sylvester, the Sylvester, Smith and Miller families of St. Paul's, and friends and neighbors in Venezuela, New York, Houston, Texas, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, the Market Square, St. Paul's and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Maria Sylvester, also known as Sheila Sylvester and Tanti Sheila of St. Paul, St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Wednesday, August 17th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the People's Church, St. Paul's, and entombment will be at the Mount Airy Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Vonley Joseph, also known as Vonley James of Tivoli, St. Andrew, who resided at Caliste, St. George, passed away on Monday, 27th June 2022, at the age of 79. He was the husband of Teresa, father of Alistair, Hannah, Rodney, Sarisa and Richard, grandfather of Roxy, Kerry, Darrell, Zoe and Riquette, brother of Gordon, uncle of Leroy, Florence, Yvette, Enoch and Sandra, brother-in-law of Helena, Wilma, Sonia, Cheryl, Everest and Lynette in Canada, father-in-law of Gillian and Nicole. Many other relatives and friends in Grenada and abroad, including Jimmy, Cheyenne, Matthew and Petrina, the pastors and members of the Pentecostal Redeemer's Temple, a Gregorian Missionary Church, and Caliste Open Bible Church, and friends and neighbours of Caliste, St. George and Tivoli, St. Andrew. The funeral of the late Vonley Joseph, also known as Vonley James, of Tivoli, St. Andrew, who resided at Caliste, St. George, will take place on Wednesday, 17th August at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to open Bible rites, and interment will be at the St. George's Centre Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Anthony Lorraine, also known as Jude Hostin and Watchett, of Grove St. John, who resided at Frequenty, St. George, passed away on Thursday, 21st July 2022, at the age of 70. He was the father of Orianthea McIntyre, stepfather of Raymond Thomas, brother of Sherwin and Shirley Ann Lorraine, Margaret Campbell and Cecil Hostin in the USA, Bernard Lorraine, Joan Glean and Merlin Spencer in Grenada, brother-in-law of Germaine Lorraine in the USA, Kathy Ann Lorraine and Laurie Glean, nephew of Joan Abraham and Bernadette Jaffier, uncle of many including Junior and Raymond Lorraine, Marlon and Dwayne Glean, Hanif, Kellen, Alva, Kelroy and Nikki Lorraine, caretakers Joel Thomas and Nikki Lorraine. Many cousins, other relatives and friends including the Abraham family of Grandroy, the Castillo family of Grove, the Lorraine and Hostin families of St. John, the Charles and Grant families of Victoria, the Hercules family of St. David, Teacher Shermaine and family, Mr. Peter David and family, Helen Williams and family, Elaine Dabrio and family, former employees of Grenlick, and friends and neighbours of Frequenty, Grove and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Anthony Lorraine, also known as Jude Hostin and Watchett, of Grove St. John, who resided at Frequenty, St. George, will take place on Friday, August 19th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, Grove, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Sterling Stephen of Vendham, St. George, passed away on Friday, August 5th, 2022, at the age of 48. The funeral arrangements for the late Sterling Stephen of Vendham, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Von Joel Hazard, also known as Rasta and Iwell, of Windsor Forest, St. David, passed away on Monday, 25th July 2022, at the age of 42. The funeral arrangements for the late Von Joel Hazard, also known as Rasta and Iwell of Windsor Forest, St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Margaret Edwards, also known as Margot, of Conference St. Andrew, passed away on Sunday, August 7th, 2022, at the age of 57. The funeral arrangements for the late Margaret Edwards, also known as Margot, of Conference St. Andrew will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Monica Sybil Mitchell, also known as Mom, of New Hampshire St. George, passed away on Thursday, August 4th, 2022, at the age of 81. The funeral arrangements for the late Monica Sybil Mitchell, also known as Mom of New Hampshire St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Tyrone Charles of Central Depredin Street, Grove, St. John, passed away on Sunday, 17th July 2022, at the age of 82. The funeral arrangements for the late Tyrone Charles of Central Depredin Street, Grove, St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Yvonne Buckmeyer, also known as Mommy Yvonne of St. James St. Andrew, passed away on Thursday, 28th July 2022, at the age of 74. The funeral arrangements for the late Yvonne Buckmeyer, also known as Mommy Yvonne of St. James St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Thelma Ermine Charles, also known as Tells of Snug Corner St. George, passed away on Saturday, July 30th, 2022, at the age of 67. The funeral arrangements for the late Thelma Ermine Charles, also known as Tells of Snug Corner St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph George, also known as JD of Hope St. Andrew, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, died on July 23, 2022, at the age of 68. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph George, also known as JD of Hope St. Andrew, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Veronica Gilks, also known as Miss Gray, of Tempe St. George, passed away on Sunday, 31st July 2022, at the age of 83. The funeral arrangements for the late Veronica Gilks, also known as Miss Gray, of Tempe St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Thelma Klein, née Belfon, of Croshoe St. Andrew, who resided at Harmony Hall and Tabor St. David, passed away on Sunday, 24th July 2022 in the USA, at the age of 88. The funeral arrangements for the late Thelma Klein, née Belfon, of Croshoe St. Andrew, who resided at Harmony Hall and Tabor St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Thomas Greenidge of Windsor Forest St. David, who resided at Croshoe St. Andrew and in the United Kingdom, passed away on Wednesday, 27th July 2022, at the age of 88. The funeral arrangements for the late Thomas Greenidge of Windsor Forest St. David, who resided at Croshoe St. Andrew and in the United Kingdom, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes.
Nehemiah Dominic Mitchell, also known as Mr. McKay, sole proprietor and farmer of Happy Hill St. George, resided at Maryborough St. Andrew, passed away on Friday, 15th July, at the age of 89. The funeral for the late Nehemiah Dominic Mitchell, also known as Mr. McKay, sole proprietor and farmer of Happy Hill St. George, who resided at Maryborough St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Geraldine Sylvia Modeste, also known as Mama, of Mount Royal, who resided at Brunswick Carriacou, passed away on Sunday, July 10th, 2022, at the age of 90. The funeral arrangements for the late Geraldine Sylvia Modeste, also known as Mama, of Mount Royal, who resided at Brunswick Carriacou, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Homes. Delcina Veronica Batiste of Mon Repos St. David died on Wednesday, July 6, 2022 in the USA at the age of 88. The funeral arrangements for the late Delcina Veronica Batiste of Mon Repos St. David will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
The Bible, this book, familiar to every person on the face of the earth today, gives us directions for our life. When death comes, there is great sorrow to the family and friends and loved ones of the one that has passed on. But if we put our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ and we follow the instructions of this book, we know we will meet again. We don't take it lightly. We don't take it for granted. There must be a decision, because without a decision, the decision is made to be separated from God. So put your trust in the Lord. Believe. The thief on the cross said, Lord, consider me. And Jesus said, today you would be with me, this very hour. And they died together. So put your trust in the Lord, and God bless you during your time of grief and bereavement. Put your trust in the Lord.